Right. This is the 44th episode of the Run in My Mouth podcast. And I know it's the 44th because I actually checked this time. And before I start with the episode proper, I have some props. I have a bottle of sparkling, so not real, white grape juice and a glass here. And I'm popping bottles because I'm celebrating because I've won yet another award. Not just one, but I think like three. I'm not gonna lie, I low-key was not keeping track during the ceremony, which happened last night. Today's Sunday. The ceremony was it was Saturday. It was yesterday night. And for whatever reason, I just wasn't paying attention. I know I won three things, and I went through the list like 30 minutes ago because I wanted to add them to my resume, of course. So I know it's three, and I know one of them's first place, and I know one of them's second place, but the other one, I don't know if it's second or third place. But either way, this time, I actually am a first place winner as compared to last time, where I only got second place and only won second place. So we're kind of at an upgrade here, but I will attempt to open this bottle, which I've already opened it just to make sure it wouldn't go anywhere. And okay, we're doing a lot better than last time. So we're just gonna pour it up. Yes, very nice. Glug glug ASMR, I hope, for somebody. So let me just put the cap back on that. There we go. So yeah, here's a toast to me for winning awards for being excellent at my craft, which is, it sounds conceited to say, but sometimes I do really have to remind myself that I am actually good at what I do. And, it's not that I have imposter syndrome per se. For the most part, I do believe that I am at the level that I am at. But sometimes, you do something for so long. I've been at my job now for 2 years. In February, it was 2 years. And, you do something kind of repetitively over and over for 2 years. And eventually, what I'm doing isn't getting old. I could do it for another 2 years. I could do it for another 3 years. I could probably do it for another 5 years. I just kind of personally felt like my work was getting a little bit stale. I wasn't really innovating, which, not to pull out the corporate speak, but I don't really know how else to describe it. I wasn't doing anything new or fresh or interesting, and that's kind of been something that I've struggled with at my job, which is, to make commercials. And so, with every commercial that I make, I want it to be, at least a little bit better than the last one. And, somewhat recently, I kind of have felt that maybe I'm just stagnating, but also I don't think that's true. I think I am, innovating. Maybe I don't see it. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, because I feel like I've only done this twice, but I'll go back and I'll look at, the first spot that I made at my job, and then I'll look at my most recent one that I have made, and it's they do look the same, but I feel like the techniques have gotten a lot better, in my opinion anyways, and I feel like maybe, I have grown creatively since 2 years ago, which it's crazy that's been 2 years, but yeah, 2 years ago, I think I have grown in that regard, and, being given such accolades, even though it's only, I don't want to say it's only a state organization, it's only in the state of Mississippi, but that's the entire state of Mississippi, it's still a big deal. Our station has, two competitors for our market, and even though, it's not that many competitors, I still feel like we're coming out on top, and that was also reinforced because we got the big award of the night, which I felt in my heart of hearts that we were going to win, but some of my colleagues, because it did feel like we were kind of getting snubbed in some of the categories where we had swept like several of them last year. Um, some of my colleagues were not having high hopes, but I never give up hope. One thing about me is that I always keep the hope alive, okay? And because of that, well, maybe not because of me keeping the hope alive, probably because of, the presentation that we had to give to submit, for the big award. I don't even know where I was going with that statement. Also, I haven't even drank this yet. Here we go. It tastes like white grapes. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm gonna put this down. So yeah, that was definitely an exciting night. It's always fun to kind of have a big gathering of people in your industry, and thankfully, well, I don't know, maybe this isn't universal, but I feel like for me, at least like here, TV people aren't like stuffy and like not, I don't know, convivial, is that the word? I don't even know. But I feel like the TV people, they know how to let loose, and so it was a lot of fun, being able to see all my coworkers like outside of a work environment. That's always fun to me. Seeing people from other stations, a lot of these other stations travel quite a distance. This is coming from like all corners, all four corners of the state of Mississippi. So some people have traveled quite far for this. And also, of course, there are student categories and seeing, the next generation of journalists and, I guess, multimedia storytellers is fun. And also, of course, you have radio, which radio is still, believe it or not, I know, radio is still like a thing that exists, and I don't know if it's like going strong necessarily, but it is a thing and it does exist. So honestly, I wouldn't even really mind working in radio. I have a family member who works in radio. And so aside from, my dad, that's like the other journalist of the family, which there's probably other journalists in my family, but, they're probably in the far reaches. As far as like more immediate, which this isn't even really an immediate family member. This is my dad's like cousin. So I don't know where that puts me on the tree. But yeah, is it fair to say that I come from a family of journalists? No, because it's literally just my dad and my dad's cousin, and not even me. I'm not a journalist, by the way. Like I said, I make commercials, and that's not exactly journalism. But I do work with a lot of journalists, so I'm journalism adjacent, I guess. I'm journalism related. And it's really funny because when I was in high school, my dad really wanted me to go to his college, which was FAMU, to study journalism. And he went there when I was in high school and like brought back a bunch of stuff, like, a bunch of goodies that they give prospective students. And that still wasn't enough to convince me because, number one, for whatever reason, when I was in high school, I was like really not interested in becoming a journalist. And also, being that I am from a, let's say, economically disadvantaged area, there wasn't really a lot of focus on those kinds of things in school. Like, of course, we had sports and stuff, and like, we had a robotics team when I was in middle and high school, which I was a part of all the way from, let's see, 7th grade up until I had like quit my senior year because I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. So we had that. But as far as like other non-sports related extracurriculars, we low-key didn't really have anything. So, we had no school newspaper. I mean, we had a yearbook technically, but like the only yearbook that I have from high school was my 10th grade year. Like, I don't even have one for my senior year. I don't even know if they made one my senior year, actually. So, yeah, that's that's all I have. I mean, I'm pretty sure I, like, took a class where we were supposed to do stuff for the yearbook, but we never did when I was a senior. I don't know what happened with all of that, but it is kind of crazy to look back and realize that, again, aside from robotics, we didn't have a debate team. Like, we didn't have any mathletes or anything like that. We really, in school, I will say, there's probably some other organizations in my town doing stuff, but in my like actual school, there were hardly any non-sports related like extracurriculars, which that's just what happens when you grow up in an area that is, again, economically disadvantaged. I am glad that at least around here in the city of Jackson, which, I mean, it's a bigger city, but still in some areas I would say is similarly economically disadvantaged as my hometown of Selma. I'm glad that the kids here like have a chance to branch out into stuff like that, because I know there are like a number, and this is probably more outside of the schools than in them, but they can do robotics, they can do debate, they can do like I don't know, I guess like a school newspaper or something like that. And I'm talking about like the public schools. The private schools, of course, have the money and resources to do whatever they want, which is usually just to keep poor people out. Um, which is not controversial to say, by the way. I mean, listen, we're in the state of Mississippi. The entire point of private schools in Mississippi and Alabama, and a lot of other southern states, and a lot of non-southern states as well, is to keep out the poors and the minorities. Like, there's no need to keep up the kayfabe. They might say that that's not the reason, these days, but I've looked at one of the big private schools around here, and the cost to go there is about as much as like in-state tuition for college. And the way that it was kind of or I guess explained to me is that, oh, you're investing this much money in your kid's K-12 education. And this isn't just high school. So this is, I think it's something like 20,000 a year for K-12, which, I mean, let's just do some quick math. You know, let's see, kindergarten would be 13, so let me pull up my calculator. 20,000 times 13. That's $260,000. And also, that doesn't take into account that the price is probably going to go up, between the time of a kid being in kindergarten and them being in high school. So that is, at minimum, $260,000. And that's just tuition. That's not like anything else. No other costs associated, just to send your kid to school so they won't have to be around the poors. Which, again, they're going to claim that, oh, we're making this investment so that they can go to college for free. But let's be honest. A lot of the kids, I would even hazard a guess to say most of the kids at, private schools are just like totally average students. Like, they are not really excelling all like that. They're just very normal. And because of that, they're probably going to need, loans to go to school. So are you even really doing them that much of a favor? I don't know. I mean, I can honestly talk at length, this despite the fact that I literally don't have any children. But I have been through school, and I've been through school not that long ago. But still, I could talk at length about the state of, the public versus private. And don't even get me started on charter schools. Oh my God. That's not what we're here to talk about today. I'm going so off topic, because I have a list of topics, and I have a pretty decent list of topics. So, aside from winning an award and being awarded, because I am the best, I don't know if you knew that, but it has been a pretty good couple of weeks for new music. Let's get into it. First of all, my good Judy in Knife Palms, the Will Black of Knife Palms, recently, and by recently I mean Friday? Was it this past Friday? I guess so, yeah. This past Friday, put out a new EP. And the name is slipping my mind, which is crazy, because I've been listening to it a lot. What is this EP called? Covenant. It has how many tracks? One, two, three, four, five. It's a 5-track EP. It's about 18 minutes long. And it's been greatly anticipated for me ever since So They Say came out because, I really like the music of Knife Palms. He doesn't really, well, not really, he doesn't do live performances here or elsewhere, so I feel like Knife Palms doesn't really get the recognition that it could, but I feel like as, a solo, I guess, recording project, it's really good. And I've actually interviewed Will before, and I have that article on jacksonunderground.com, which you can read right now. And, he's really just a guy just kind of recording music in his free time, really, is the way that it was kind of explained to me and how I understood it. And he does all of the instruments himself. There's even some somewhat unconventional ones. There's bongos on So They Say, or maybe like, what are the tall bongos called? I can't remember, but that kind of instrument on the opening track of So They Say, which is, I can't remember the name of it, which is very embarrassing for me. But anyways, when can I ever remember anything? And there are, I think, saxophone parts on one of the tracks in Covenant. So I would say listen to it. That's what I would say. I would say listen to Covenant by Knife Palms. So far, as I have been listening to this EP for a little bit. Oh, before this came out, though, he actually kind of previewed one of the tracks on YouTube where he kept it up for I want to say 24 or 48 hours, or a weekend or something like that. And it's the last track on the album, 10 by 24 millimeter caseless. That's the name of the track. And I listened to that, and it was, a little bit more heavy than his previous stuff. And I was like, oh, I like this. It's very short, though. It's less than 3 minutes. So that was previewed, I want to say last month. And since then, I have really been on the Knife Palms EP2 hype train since then. But I would say, as of right now, my favorite track from the album is Nothing Known. It's right smack dab in the middle of the album, and it's just got a catchy hook, He really does know how to write a catchy hook, because the song, hold on, is it So They Say? It isn't. It's hold on. Hold on, see discography. What the heck? Where is So They Say, actually? Where did it go? Did he take it off? Hold on. MNOPRS. Okay, here it is. But none of the tracks are available. Okay. All right, now I've got a bone to pick with you. Why did you take So They Say off of Spotify? I'm not happy about this, if this was intentional. But Pathogen is the opening track from So They Say, and it has a really catchy hook on it. But now I can't even listen to it anymore because it's gone. What? And there's another EP that was on Spotify that is also gone. Okay, I'm legitimately not happy about this, because So They Say actually showed up in my Spotify Wrap last year, and now all the tracks are gone. So now I'm gonna have to I'm inquiring about this, actually. Hold on. Give me a second. I'm going to have to take a little bit of a detour, because now I want to know why it's been taken off of streaming. I'm not happy about that. I'm going to have to do this afterwards, but that, I'm not going to lie. I didn't like I didn't like that. But as far as the EP Covenant, I think it's really good, and I think you should listen to it, and I enjoy it greatly. And I'm going to have to ask why So They Say it's not available anymore. I hope it's a mistake and it's not he just took it down, because I really liked it. But also, at the same time, we're talking about Spotify here, right? And I don't know what it takes to host a song on Spotify. I don't know if it costs money to keep a song on Spotify. I do know that recently they did switch it up with how they were paying out artists, where basically if a song had less than, I want to say 1,000 streams, they just straight up weren't going to pay you, which is really unfortunate, and it kind of sucks how that works. But, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say that that's a good thing. Obviously, it's not a good thing, but I don't really know how any of that works. So if it was costing him money to keep So They Say up, and I don't know, it just felt like, or I don't know, maybe it was which that doesn't even I don't know. I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know. I literally don't know. I don't know if it's like you can only have so many songs up or something like that. I genuinely do not know. But I am definitely gonna have to ask where So They Say is, because I legitimately liked it. Like, I wanna keep listening to it. It showed up in my Spotify Wrap last year, you know. Aw. Now I'm sad. That's crazy. I don't know if he watches the pod, but if you are, well, I mean, by now you've probably already gotten a message from me, but still, I'm sad. We're gonna move on to the next piece of music that has not come out this year. It actually came out in I want to say 13. But recently, I was at work. I was bored at work, as I often am these days, and I was like, oh, my rotation was getting a little bit stale. I was listening to the same things, the same albums over and over, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pull the people. So I put up those little Q&A thingies on my Instagram stories at Jackson Underground, asking like, hey, like, recommend me a song. And I got a few recommendations that I put in a playlist. How many songs is this? Oh, it's not going to tell me. Well, I got a few recommendations that I put in a playlist, and honestly, they were good. But one recommendation that really stuck out to me was someone recommended the song One's Glow by Exivious, which is off of the album Liminal, which came out in 2013, which was quite some time ago. And Exivious is a instrumental kind of jazz fusion slash jazz fusion, which I feel like jazz fusion can mean literally anything. But if you were to, I don't know, compare it to another instrumental band, it really puts me in the mind of Plenty, but not as heavy, if that makes sense. Which, by the way, I know Plenty is not really all that heavy to begin with, but if there was a heavy spectrum and like Plenty was like, okay, let's say this isn't very illustrative at all, but let's say this is Plenty right here. And wait, no, this is the end. So this is completely not heavy at all. And then Plenty was like right here. So I don't know, like a fourth of the way up, I would say Exivious would be not heavy, but also like below Plenty. That wasn't a really good example, but I hope that made sense. Anyways, I have been listening to the album Liminal pretty much since I heard that one track, and that's the second track off of the album. And it's a 8-track album. It's about 45 minutes long, and I'm not gonna lie, I like it a lot. I do like, jazz fusion. I feel like there was another word that I used to describe it, but I completely forgot. But anyways, I like that type of music. Of course, being a fan of Animals as Leaders, you can't see, but I have Weightless, my signed vinyl of Weightless up on the wall. It is my prized possession. So I am a fan of this kind of music, so being recommended something like that was great. It was a very great recommendation. It's a 10 out of 10 recommendation, because now I have another album that is in my rotation, and I love that. It seems, however, that Exivious has not put out, and I don't know if this is like I don't really know much about this project at all. I'm just gonna say that, but it seems like the last thing that they put out was in 2017. They have a self-titled album from 2009, and then they have some early demos, or like an album of demos from 2017. And it looks like these demos go back to about 2001. So yeah, that's Exivious. If you haven't ever listened to anything by them, I do recommend it. I think it's great. Going from music that I think is great to music that I am not really all that impressed with. So a little bit about me. My first, I would say favorite metal adjacent metalcore band was A Day to Remember. And, I kind of discovered them in high school. They were kind of my, well, I guess technically Fall Out Boy was my gateway drug into heavier music. And, A Day to Remember was the bridge from Fall Out Boy to, like, I don't know, early Bring Me the Horizon, I guess. Um, and so, I would say I like pretty much everything that they've put out. Um, I haven't really given And Their Name Was Treason like a good front to back listen, which I probably should. I don't know why I wouldn't. I do like quite a few songs from that album though. For Those Who Have Heart, love. Homesick, love. What Separates Me From You, love. It's on the Wall, so you know I love it. Common Courtesy, love. Bad Vibrations, there's like one song on there that I like. And of course, I didn't really, there's quite a bit of time between Bad Vibrations and their next album, which was, yeah, that was You're Welcome. Which, fun fact, Bad Vibrations came out on, I want to say, like, my 15th birthday. It came out September 2nd, 2014. Yeah. So that was interesting. But, I still consider Bad Vibrations to be, like, decent. So, in my opinion, and in the opinions of many people, many metalcore heads, A Day to Remember up until like 2014 had a pretty much unbeatable run. Like, good album after great album after amazing album. Like, they were unstoppable. But after Bad Vibrations, I feel like, I don't know. I don't want to say they jumped the shark because I feel like that's not the correct terminology to use at all. But honestly, at some point, it kind of felt like they stopped innovating. And before I get into, the Big Ole Album, which this is volume 1, by the way, there's another album that's coming out. I forgot when, but at some point, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say completely. Oh, a lot of the sentiment around this album after it came out and people were giving their first impressions is that, maybe we have collectively outgrown A Day to Remember. And I don't think that's true. And the reason I don't think that's true is because if we have outgrown it, then we wouldn't be listening to their prior, their entire prior discography. I can only speak for myself, and I still listen to pretty much all of their prior albums except for You're Welcome, because I never listened to it to begin with. Bad Vibrations, except for Bullfight. I listen to Bullfight quite a lot. It's a good song. What can I say? I liked it. And Their Name Was Treason, because I just really haven't given it a good front to back listen. But their second, third, fourth, and fifth albums, I listen to them frequently. And I still think they bang. So I don't feel like this is a case of us outgrowing them. I honestly feel like this is a case of them not really growing along with us, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, like I said before, they just aren't innovating, which I guess is an interesting way to describe music as innovation. But yeah, sure, I think that can be applied. So anyways, this past Friday, I did give the Big Ole Album a big ol' listen, and because I was bored at work, I decided to write some notes, some very quick notes on what I thought of each song. And, before this, I did listen to the singles, including Miracle, which, by the way, came out like 2 years ago. So it's been a while. It's been a while since that came out. And so, I mean, it's a few words, just a few words for each song. And by the way, I haven't really listened to like any of this since this past Friday, which, I mean, it's only been a couple of days. But, I don't know if this is going to be something that's going to marinate on me like some of my other favorite at the time albums have had. Like Era Self-Titled had to marinate on me. Cure by Era also had to marinate on me for some reason. Those are the only two that I can really think of like right now. Anyways, here's the big ol' review of the Big Ole Album First track, Make It Make Sense. That was one of the singles, and for that I just put it was kind of a lackluster opener. And also I'm reading off my phone here if you couldn't tell. I just felt like it was a lackluster opener. Feedback, this song is literally talking about what I was talking about for like the last 10 minutes about people's opinions on their music, and it's like I don't know. That just feels too meta to me. Like talking about people talking about your music in your music. Like I can't get into it. I can't get into it. Like lyrically, it's too meta for me. Musically, I mean, I didn't really write about the music, so it was kind of obviously not doing enough. Um, Bad Blood. I had like zoned out listening to this, and I swear I thought I was listening to like a new era Fall Out Boy song. I was like, wait a minute, like why does Jeremy sound like Patrick Stump in this song? Which is crazy because I feel like Patrick Stump has a pretty unique voice, and for me to get duped momentarily into thinking that I was listening to a Fall Out Boy track was kind of crazy. I'm not gonna lie. That was really all I had to think about the song. And then there's All My Friends, which I wrote Y'alternative without the alternative, and it just kind of felt like one of the new wave of country songs where it's just kind of vaguely country sounding, and it's talking about getting together with my friends and drinking, and it's like thematically, I feel like not Fall Out Boy, thematically, A Day to Remember have had songs like that, but I feel like those other songs worked a little bit more than this one did, because it just, I don't know, like I said, Y'alternative without the alternative. It's just y'all and like, why? I don't know. I couldn't get into it. It felt like it, it felt like beer commercial music in a way. So yeah, we're gonna move on. The next one, To the Death, I just wrote, it's not giving. Like, it's just not giving. It's just a little bit bland. It's just not giving. That's really it. And then Flowers, I wrote, close enough, welcome back, common courtesy, leave all the lights on core. Which honestly, that song does kind of sound like Leave All the Lights On, which is one of the, okay, it's not a ballad, but it's one of the softer songs from Common Courtesy, which honestly, I don't mind a lot of the softer songs on Common Courtesy. I like them a lot, actually. And it sounded a lot like that, and I was like, okay, I could kind of get into this, but I could also just listen to Leave All the Lights On and get the same thing, but a little bit better, So that was that. Let's see. All right, some mild technical difficulties there, but nothing too major. So yes, like I was saying, LeBron, I listened to the single when it came out, and I was like, I don't really mind this. It kind of sounds like not necessarily old, A Day to Remember. For whatever reason, kind of put me in the mind of like 4 Year Strong for some reason, but kind of like that era of like pop punk, like kind of like that. And for that reason, I liked it. And for my notes, I put, actually like this one very 4 Year Strong core. The next track, Die For Me, I just put because I mean, it's just not really memorable all that much. Miracle, this is, the single that they put out in 2022. And I put that it has not grown on me after 3 years. And again, it reminded me of Fall Out Boy a little bit, and I was like, okay. I mean, I listened to it when it came out 2 years ago, or I guess 3 years ago, and I was like, it's just another. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the songs after LeBron are just kind of not really that memorable to me. For Same Team, I again put because it's just For Silence, I put kind of bland, and also 3 sleeping emojis, because again, it's just And Closer Than You Think, I put not terrible, but still kind of bland, I fear. And that's the closer of the album. And overall, I put not enough gang vocals. Because I feel like A Day to Remember is really known for some of their gang vocals, and I feel like there's like no gang vocals on this album, which is crazy. Especially, I mean, gosh, like most of their music has gang vocals on it, I would argue. And there were none. It was absent, and that's not fun. I want my gang vocals back. Anyways, that's my big ol' review for the big ol' stinker that was Big Ole. Okay, I won't say big ol' stinker, because I mean, it wasn't stinky, it was just kind of bland. It's the unseasoned white rice of their discography. But according to some people, and again, these are the people on the metalcore subreddit, and I saw a comment that said that this was better than Common Courtesy, so I'm taking what they're saying with a grain of salt, which, by the way, I know they're not like a hive mind. These are all individual people writing things individually, so it's like, okay, that was just like one guy. But the overall consensus is that it is better than You're Welcome, so I deign to think what the album You're Welcome is like. And I know the band have had some difficulties, especially with their bassist, who I think was, I don't know if he was like an alleged chomo or what, but he did something really bad. That's all I remember. It was a little bit ago. And so they had to oust him. Speaking of oustings, I mean, I can't really talk too much about this because I don't really know much about it to begin with. But apparently hardcore is in shambles because the band Zulu, which was actually supposed to come to Jackson, if not a year ago, then maybe like 2 years ago, and then like dropped out abruptly. Word on the street. They've broken up, or are on pause, because one of their members was outed as an abuser. And then there's another band, who I'm not even gonna lie, I can't remember the name of, but one of their guitarist was outed as a gooner. So it's like, okay, we're in shambles. Hardcore is in shambles. And all that happened sort of close to each other. The Zulu thing was, I feel like, more last month. And the one with the other band, whose name that I just can't remember for whatever reason, that happened, I want to say, this past week. So, yeah. Anyways, that's the new and new to me, music for this week, or I guess the last 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks since the last episode, because, this is a every other week podcast. I feel like I keep seeing things, but it also might be windy outside, and there's, like, branches coming in front of my window. That's why I'm looking over here, because I keep seeing stuff in the corner of my eye. Anyways, next on the list, shows that I have been to recently. I've been to a show, just one, and that one that I have been to, it was, let me look at my calendar because I forgot. It was a Monday night show, and honestly, don't sleep on the Monday night shows, because they are honestly, the shows that I've been to on Monday nights or Tuesday nights are honestly like the most fun shows that I've ever gone to, which is crazy. The Monday night, we had Ignomious, which was returning to Mississippi. They originally came, I want to say, like last summer, or thereabouts, is when they first came, and I did not go to that show for a reason that I can't remember. I think I just didn't go, or maybe I was doing something, I can't remember. Like, it's been a year, or thereabouts, so, but it was Ignomious. And then we had two brand spanking new, still had the plastic on it, still had the blue plastic on it, brand spanking, okay, well, only one of those was still had the blue plastic on it. The other one, they've been somewhat involved in the music community here for, I want to say, probably a while, but Massacre and Max Equipload, both from, if not Jackson, then the Jackson metro area, and first of the night was Massacre, and it was, and I don't say this to be disparaging, by the way, I think it's great what they're doing, but it was legitimately two babies, like two just infants, just two very young kids, they're very young kids, and it looked like they brought their entire family there, because I saw some older individuals who, I don't want to say they didn't look like they belonged, but they stood out. This is a metal show. So they stood out. Um, but I thought it was really nice that it seemed like, honestly, like their entire extended family came to see them perform for the first time. It was really sweet to see. As far as their music, it definitely still had the blue plastic on there. But again, they're young. And honestly, when I was their age, I wanted to be able to play any instrument. And the fact that they are not only playing instruments, but also playing them for an audience at their age, I think that's absolutely amazing. They still got a little while to go. As far as the polish is concerned, again, like I said, they still got the blue plastic on there. But I hope they continue. I hope they keep doing what they're doing. And, I think it's great to see kids that young, performing music like that. And in fact, I can't remember if I ever talked about this. I think I did, like, when it first popped up. But Jacktown Rundowns, who's run by Isaac Hitt of the Akashic 45s, and he's also a luthier, which is a person who makes stringed instruments. In particular, he makes guitars. So he's a gearhead. He has a YouTube channel called Jacktown Rundowns and an Instagram account, but a YouTube channel called Jacktown Rundowns, where he has done interviews with musicians in Jackson talking about their gear. And I saw him doing a little interview with the children of Massacre, and I thought that was really cute. So you will likely see that episode. I don't really know what his upload schedule is like, if he has an upload schedule. But you will see that whenever it comes out. I mean, that's up to him, you know? So that was cool, I thought. And yeah, so first show, I thought it was great to see. The next band, Max Equip Load, was 3 people who I have seen around before. So, they're not 100% new to the music community here necessarily. And also their set was like really short. I can't remember how many songs they played, but I felt like their set was like 10 minutes long, which is crazy because I really liked the music that they made. I thought it was great. I can't wait for their next show. I would like for their set to be a little bit longer, but I don't know. Maybe that was all the material they had. So, yeah. And then of course there's Ignomious. Yes, Ignomious. I don't know why. Anyways, Ignomious from Ohio. Their second time here in Jackson, and I'm honestly wish that that I had went to their first show when they were here the last time, because I probably would have enjoyed it a lot. Also, I think the thing about that show is that there were like 4 bands on the bill, and the show might have started at like 8. So that also might have been a contributing factor of why I didn't go, because there were 4 bands on the bill and the show started at 8. Maybe on a weekday or something. I mean, I can look this up. I put it on my calendar. Ignomios. Yeah, the show started at 8, and there were 4 bands on the bill. But it was a Friday. So I don't really know why I didn't go. Anyways, they were great. I liked them a lot. They had a vocalist with very long hair who did the windmill thingy. And, I love that. the windmill thingy with the long hair. That's, okay. That, for whatever reason, is what I took away from that set. But yeah, they were great. Great energy. They're kind of one of those, like, unserious metal bands, which honestly I love. I love an unserious metal band. Like, they have a song about being forklift certified. They have a song, I think it's literally called, like, Big Alligator or something like that. And I like it when my musicians don't take themselves extremely seriously. What can I say? I love a silly, goofy band. Love, and not to disparage musicians that do take themselves very seriously. It works. But sometimes, I just want to have a silly goose time. And you know what? I kind of did have a silly goose time. And we took a group picture. It's on Ignomious's Instagram, and I am in the picture, which I thought was cool. So yeah, that was that show. As far as upcoming shows go, tomorrow, as I am recording this, there is... Where am I? So, Celebrity Sighting from, I can't remember. I'm not even gonna lie. I can't remember where they're from. Silo Kids from Hattiesburg World, and Hammer and the Tools makes a return. So if you didn't know this, because I don't know if I talked about this on the pod, but Hammer and the Tools, they are a band that I have seen frequently. I would consider the people in Hammer and the Tools to be my good Judies. Yeah, I'll say that. The people in Hammer and the Tools are my good Judies. Some of them I haven't seen in quite some time, so I am going to be excited to see them tomorrow. One of their members, their beloved member, Sam, and also, by the way, they have tool names. I can't remember what their tool names are, because there's Hammer, who's the guitarist, it's Haley, and everybody else is her tools, but I don't know, I forgot what their tools, I forgot what tools they were, unfortunately. But one of their beloved tools, Sam, escaped us. Escaped is a crazy way to put it. He moved to California, which I don't listen. Some might consider that an escape. I just didn't know how to phrase it at the time, but he moved to California and he was their bassist. And so they had, not been performing for a while, but another tool is entering the box on tomorrow, and I do know who it is. But you're just gonna have to wait and find out, I guess. But also, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, and this is like your first time hearing this, well, it's too late, I guess. You're, I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, that's tomorrow. I am greatly looking forward to that, because again, I haven't seen some of them in quite some time. And also, Silo Kids. I like Silo Kids. Honestly, I haven't seen every Hattiesburg band, but the Hattiesburg bands that I have seen, I have liked them a lot. So I don't know what they got in the water down there in Hburg, but whatever it is, it's the good stuff. And honestly, I do want to go down to Hattiesburg at some point this year to see a show, because it has been not really like a concrete goal of mine, but it has been a goal of mine, especially after I went to Atlanta, like the week before Thanksgiving last year, to see like a local show in like different cities in the region. Like I want to go to a show in Hattiesburg. I don't know if there's really going to be, usually the stuff in Starkville that's going on is more centered during the school year. But also the person who's organizing a lot of those shows like recently graduated. So I don't think he's like planning on stopping. I know he's not planning on, well, okay, I can't say that I know, because I don't, but I have a feeling that he's not really planning on stopping. But also Starkville is like a little bit further away than Hattiesburg. I'm not even gonna lie. It's a journey. Just a teeny weeny bit. Also, close that. It's a journey a little bit. I want to go to a show in Memphis, and I want to go to a show in New Orleans, and I am planning a little Memorial Day trip, kind of like my I guess, pseudo writers retreat that I took down there last year. But this time around, I don't really have like a main goal other than to walk around and look at stuff and eat good food and see a show, which I guess you can pair together walking around and looking at stuff. So I want to walk around and look at stuff, which that's one now. Eat good food, which I'm going to be in New Orleans, so that's not going to be a hard feat, and see a show. Which, given that, this is a couple of months away, and I don't keep a detailed calendar of things that are going on in New Orleans like I am of things that are going on in Jackson, I don't really know what's going to be happening then, but I feel like, closer to that date, I will. And also, there is a person, I guess, sort of doing something similar to me, which I think that publication kind of predates what I've been doing by a while. But Alt Scene NOLA, they interview local musicians, and they also go to shows and keep track of things like that. Honestly, I wouldn't really mind like talking to them, like just kind of chopping it up, picking their brain. I think what they're doing is really cool. I've listened to a couple of their interviews. And as I understand it, there was somebody who was doing it before the current person is, and they kind of inherited it from the previous person. But I would still be interested in, speaking to them, not really like doing an interview or anything like that, but just like talking to them and just like, a meeting of the minds, if you will, so who knows, maybe I will be able to do that when I am down there. If you're watching, which I kind of doubt it, but if you're watching, I already follow you on Instagram, so, reach out, I guess, or I could just reach out, but I'm shy, so that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna have another sip. Very good. So let me see. Are there any other shows coming up that I would like to speak about this? Oh my goodness. I'm looking at my calendar and there's like a lot going on this week actually. So there's the celebrity sighting show tomorrow. There's nothing on Tuesday that I know of anyways. But on Wednesday, there's Missive, which I don't know if it's Missive or it's just MSSV. And then a trio of musicians. I didn't write all of their names on my calendar because I'm lazy. And then iJam, which is a side project of Zach, who is also the drummer of Hammer and the Tools. That will be Wednesday at the End of All Music, which, by the way, I have to talk about the End of All Music because something crazy happened there recently, but you're just going to have to wait for now. And then on Thursday, you have Don Quixote's Horace, Field View, and Smokies at Urban Foxes. And then also, you have Headcanon and Cookie Woo at Howlin' Mouse, which, by the way, I don't know, if you're watching / listening to this outside of Jackson, you might not know, but every year there's like a huge St. Patrick's Day like celebration that's kind of citywide, which all kind of culminates in the Howlin' Mouse St. Patty's Parade, which St. Patrick's Day was last Monday? Yes. But the parade and festivities and all of that were this past Saturday. And so all of that kind of centers around Howlin' Mouse. And recently, they named, I believe, I don't know if it's just that section, but they named, that section of Commerce Street in honor of, I believe it's Hal White, which he's the Hal of Howlin' Mouse. And he has passed away. I don't know when. I want to say maybe sometime in the 2000s. And Mal is still alive, so I thought that was really nice. I think there's like a historic marker at Howlin' Mouse as well, which is really interesting. For a restaurant that's, usually you're in Mississippi, you see historic markers. It's probably something civil rights related, but I think Howlin' Mouse has only existed since maybe the 80s, something like that. But it is sort of an, I guess, institution here in Jackson. And so that's really it. Let's see. And then there is something called Red Brick Roads that goes on in Clinton, which is Friday and Saturday. Or is this? Yeah, Friday and Saturday of this week. I don't really know that much about it, but I do know that at least one, maybe two bands from here. Well, I mean, they have a whole entire music lineup, but as far as like, the more DIY type bands that are going to be there, I believe it's the Akashic 45s, and I think maybe Smokies. I'm not sure. I can double check that. You watching this could also probably look it up and see. So that's Friday and Saturday, and then we have Blue Window, Weak Hearts, and Fort Eve at Urban Foxes on Friday. And then on Saturday, aside from day 2 of Red Brick Roads, we have Doggish, Susio, and Fort Eve at the End of All Music. And that is this week, a very busy week this week, And then next Sunday, we have Farseek, Surfwax, and Exo Gonzo, which this is a show I'm really looking forward to because I actually do really like Surfwax. They were, kind of the first band that I sort of interviewed for Jackson Underground before they went on tour with The Public, which is from St. Louis, Missouri. And also, I just really like their music, and they don't perform super often. So whenever I do get a chance to see them, I do sort of try to. So yeah, that is upcoming Gigianas for this week and part of next. And so, like I alluded to before, something so totally insane happened this past week. So one day, I think it might have been like Thursday or something. Yeah, it was Thursday morning. I take State Street to go to work every day, and I was driving past, the End of All Music, and I saw that there's like a big blue tarp at the front of the store, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, what on earth happened? I saw that there's like, not only was the glass broken, but also like the brick facade, like some of the bricks were loose and just like strewn about. And I was like, okay, either somebody tried to break in or, somebody backed a car into the store like accidentally or something like that. And thankfully, it wasn't a robbery. But what happened, I think, is even more insane. But there was a person driving a four wheeler, an ATV, here on the streets, which already is crazy. Driving an ATV on city streets. Like, this was not like a city ATV. This was an off road. Well, okay. ATV literally does stand for all terrain vehicle. But I think, those kinds were more so meant for off-roading endeavors. But they were driving, and there is security camera footage of this, which is so crazy to watch. But he's driving a little ATV down State Street, and this is like before midnight. It was like 11:45-ish, let's say. And they're driving down, going real fast. And given that this was Thursday night, there's not a lot going on that little strip. So it's pretty much empty. But then he just like bangs it into the front of the Involved Music. Goes, I want to say like through the window, goes through some of the bricks. And this guy's not wearing a helmet. So you think, just think of the number of people, which, I mean, it is usually children that die on ATVs, which is crazy to think about. But the number of people who die or are grievously injured for riding ATVs recklessly and without a helmet, the guy, well, I mean, he obviously wasn't fine. He went through a window at a pretty high speed. So, he was hospitalized, but he didn't die, is the crazy part. He didn't die, but he went through the front. And it was crazy. And this all happened, like, I guess, Wednesday night into early Thursday morning. And so now they have, like, a thing up. And thankfully, I will say this, thankfully it wasn't a robbery. Because, I have nothing to corroborate this. I'm really just going off of vibes. But, sometimes I get the impression that, that area of Fondren where the Involved Music is, and I guess, the greater downtown Fondren area, which, by the way, I think calling it downtown, for me, calling that area, like, downtown, even though it's, like, not downtown, because keep in mind, you live in Fondren, you have a Jackson address, okay? You might be able to say, oh, I live in Fondren, but the interview address still says Jackson. And to me, I feel like personally, and I'm not the only one who thinks this, by the way, I feel like Fondren is a place where people live so that they can pretend that they don't live in Jackson, because they just hate the idea of living in Jackson for whatever reason. So, it's that type of people that live here. So, I have noticed that, they are doing a lot to kind of revitalize that area, because, in the last, I want to say, since I've been living here, they've opened up that bowling alley, there's like a restaurant as well. I mean, there's a lot of restaurants over in that area, but there's a bowling alley, which has a restaurant in it, and the movie theater, and then the pizza place that's like right next to it. Not quite the Pig and Pint, but like further up from that. And, there are, property developers doing this. And I feel like they have really been trying to, I guess, really family-friendlyify the area, which, to me, that means kind of just taking all the personality out of something and making it a place where people want to spend money and stick around for a little while, which, I mean, that, the point of a business is, I guess, to make money, but it feels kind of soulless to me, the new developments that are happening in Fondren, in my opinion, because not only have they opened up the parking garage, which, by the way, the parking garage was a welcome addition, in my opinion, because, being that I have gone to shows at the Involved Music frequently, sometimes there literally is nowhere to park. Like, you just cannot find somewhere to park. Now there's like a 3 or 4 story parking garage. It's great. It's pretty dope, actually. But now they're taking that lot that used to be where everybody parked, if you could park over there. They're taking that lot and they're going to be turning that into a hotel, which there's already a hotel on that street. So, I mean, you know, I've been places where there's like 4 hotels on a 4-way intersection. So that's not really that crazy to me, but I don't know. Something about it is just, I mean, this area is already gentrified, but I feel like they're like turbocharging the gentrification, and in doing that, they're taking, to me, everything out of the neighborhood that made it remotely interesting and just turning it into any other, like, I don't know. I really don't know how to or what to call these kinds of neighborhoods, but they're like trendy and like for young people, but for trendy young people who have children and who are waspy, let's say. They're for trendy young wasps. And by that, I don't mean the bug. I mean white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, of course. Basically, yeah. Not only are they gentrifying the neighborhood, they're also waspifying the neighborhood. And anything that falls outside of that mold, they're, I don't know, they're trying to water it down, weed it out, I guess. And, I've seen a variety of music played at the end of all music, but, I have seen a lot of like metal shows there. I've seen, punk shows there. I've seen, I guess it's not really hardcore, but hardcore adjacent shows there. I've seen, loud, aggressive music being played there, and, I love it. It's a really cool venue to have that at, being that it is a record store, having music shows at a record store, I mean, it's logical, But, and of course, I want to make this clear. I don't have any evidence of this happening. This is just purely based on vibes. But I feel like the people who are gentrifying and waspifying that area of Fondren are maybe not happy about the kind of shows that happen at the end of all music. That is what I am saying. And of course, again, I have no way to verify this. This is based off of vibes only. And, I'm not really saying that to say, like, oh, this was a hit, of the guy driving an ATV. He was probably drunk, or lost control of an ATV and, like, again, rocketed it into the side of a building, which is crazy that he walked away from that. I mean, he walked away from it and onto a stretcher into the back of an ambulance, but still, whoa, like, you would die from that, you would think, but he didn't, which is crazy. Anyways, that's just kind of an aside from that happening, I guess. Anywho, I have had to kind of switch gears. I've had a stack of books on my coffee table for, I want to say, like 2 or 3 months at this point, because I've been very gradually, and by gradually, I just mean slowly, downsizing the number of things I have in my apartment in preparation for moving. I've, found some books that I wanted to get rid of. I have a trash bag of clothes that will be meeting a Goodwill at some point. Okay, that was gross. Ew. I have a trash bag of clothes that will be meeting a Goodwill at some point. And, I didn't really know what to do with my books. I mean, I knew I could have given them to a Goodwill because they sell books at the Goodwill. But for whatever reason, I didn't feel like doing that. But I also didn't feel like, selling them or trying to sell them. Because those books, they were in pretty good condition. A lot of them are still relatively, like, new. And there were some hardcovers in there as well. And so the thing about that is that I don't know if I would really get any meaningful amount, trying to sell them like used on Amazon or like eBay or anything like that. And there are some used bookstores around here, but I think the ones that I were looking at, they would only offer like store credit in exchange for the books. And I was like, I'm going to want some more books eventually, but for now, I'm just kind of focused on offloading the stack that I have. But I will say one really interesting thing about, well, I mean, this isn't unique to Jackson at all by any means, but there are a number of little free libraries around. And if you don't know, perhaps you live in an area that doesn't have them, because there definitely weren't any in my neighborhood. I remember actually first learning about, the concept of a little free library. I think it was when I was in high school, and I was like, man, it sounded like really idyllic to me for some reason, that there were just these little, basically birdhouse sized and shaped boxes where you can put books in and get books for free, and like you could keep them. Unlike a normal library, we'd have to give them back after 2 weeks, you know. But there are a number of those around here. There's one very close to me. There's another one like on the route of me going to work, and then there's the Eudora Welty one, which I went to Belhaven, so like I have known of its existence since I went to college. But for whatever reason, I never like actually bothered to go and actually look in it, or really any other little free library. But now I had this stack of books, and I was like, you know what? I'll just put them in the little free library. And so I went to the one, there's the one by the church in Fondren. It's not Fondren Church. It's the white brick one, not the red brick one. They're like right across the street from each other. But there's a little free library in front of it. And so I went, and that one was practically full, so I could only put like a few books in there. I couldn't put my whole stack in there, but I did end up getting a couple of books out. But I did make a couple of stops. So at first I went to the one at the church in Fondren that's not Fondren Church. It's the white brick one. It's more church-shaped than Fondren Church, which has like a bunch of buildings for some reason. Anyways, so I went to that one. I put in, I want to say like 3 books because that was all I could fit. And I got one out of there. I went to the one, there's one like on Jefferson Street in like, I guess, I actually don't know if that would be considered the Belhaven neighborhood. I guess it's more downtown than Belhaven. And there was like literally nothing in there. So I put like 3 books in there. Which I think that was like the rest of my stack actually. So I put the rest of my stack in there. And then I was like, well, I mean, I still want to see if I can get another one, if I can score 2 books potentially. So I went to the Eudora Welty one, which that was interesting because, I mean, well, first of all, the Eudora Welty, little free library is like kind of shaped like the house, which is really cute. But also, I haven't been in that area like in a really long time. Like, I went to school there, but that was like, I graduated 4 years ago. So it's been a while. And I don't really have a reason to like be on the campus of Belhaven. So like, I don't go. But it was really interesting to go back there because a lot of the streets had been repaved, which is really interesting because when I was in school, those streets sucked real hard. Like, I'm glad they've been repaved, but good Lord, did they used to be bad? Like, whoa. It was grim, And also, they have, like, the giant, like, parking garage in the parking lot in front of the former Gillespie, now Lakeview dorm, which is really kind of jarring to see because, going up there, you could kind of, like, there was a straight shot all the way from the street to the dorm, but now there's, like, a big building in the way, so that was kind of jarring. They repaved the streets, and also they now have, like, gates going into the parking lots, and I think they have them for all of them except for maybe the Center for Fine Arts. So now you can't even really just like park on campus anymore. You have to be let in, which, maybe that's for the best, because parking was already like grim when I went there. I would assume, I don't have any numbers to back this up, but I would assume there are more students going there now than there were when I was a student. And, they built that parking garage for a reason. You could not find parking. Like, on the weekends, when people would leave, I wouldn't, be purposefully moving my car. But if I went somewhere and, like, I came back to my dorm when I did have a car, because I only had a car for, like, 2 out of the 3.5 years that I went to college. But, I would hold on to that good parking spot that I could find because there's no parking to be found. So, if it's, like, for parking reasons, then, like, yeah, I fully support it because there's nowhere to park ever on campus. Like, good Lord. And, like, don't even try driving to chapel unless you're carpooling because there's nowhere to park. Did I say the CFA? I meant the arts building, or like the Bitsy Irby. That was what I was talking about. The CFA is where they have theater performances / chapel. But there's no parking there either. So you'd have to park like in the middle of the road, which is crazy for me at the time as a relatively new-ish driver. I mean, I had my driver's license, but I wasn't super experienced with driving. Like, that was agita inducing. Like, I could not park in the center of the street on, what is that? I think that's Riverside. Like, no, that's not happening. Like, no, thank you. Anyways, it was really interesting to see the campus after not having been there for, I mean, let's see. The year that I moved back here, I think I went to the singing Christmas tree, maybe? Or did I? I can't remember. But it's been a while. So that was kind of nostalgic to be in the neighborhood, drive around campus. Yeah. Anyways, like I said, I got some books. I got some books. I got 2 books. One from the one that was closest to me and one from the Eudora Welty Library, which, by the way, if you are wondering, there's plenty of books to go around if you want one. And of course, I put some in a couple. So the first one that I got was Mortal Injuries by Christine Watson, which I read the blurbs of these and they seemed, interesting. And also, blessedly, this one's under 300 pages. Look at her, so petite. I love it. I love a short book. I love a tight 90-minute movie, and I love a book that's no more than 300 pages, because you can tell a story in 90 minutes, and you can tell a story in less than 300 pages. I'm just putting it out there. Anyways, the next one that I got was Woman 17, which this one has like some sticker residue on the dust jacket, which listen, it's a free book from a little library, so it's like, how much can I really complain? And these are both hardcovers, so these are books that would normally, let's see, this one is $26 and this one is $28, so a bargain, honestly. All I had to do was drop off some of my old literature and I got these for the free. And this one is by Eden Lapuki, New York Times bestselling author of California. So let's see, Woman 17, and I not really heard of these books before, but again, I read the blurbs. Okay. I didn't really flip through this, but I guess this one was signed, because the part of this page is like cut out. So I think somebody cut the signature out of this. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't really give these like a flip through. I mean, this one's a little bit yellowed. I think someone had it for a while. But aside from that and the cutout page, it's in, decent condition. But this one came out in 2017, so it's 2017 was kind of a while ago. This is 8 years ago. Just about. So maybe not that new. But it came out in 2017. And Moral Injuries. Did I say Mortal Injuries? It's Moral Injuries before. By Christine Watson came out. Oh, this came out in 2024. This is like practically. And it's a first edition. Okay. I got me a first edition. Not that I really care about like first editions or anything like that. I mean, I care about a book if it's signed. I do have a few signed books. But, first editions, unless they're like special editions. But wow, out here putting first editions in the little free libraries, that's crazy. But yeah, this came out in 2024, so it is practically brand new. So this is, I would say, I don't know, contemporary fiction. And these are also somewhat thematically similar. I mean, they both have female protagonists, I think. But also, I'm not going to be reading the blurbs. You can find the blurbs. But also, I still have This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things by Naomi Wood that I have not started yet, that I would probably like to start at some point, so I can get through the stack that I have now. And I forgot there's this other book that I had that I'm not really feeling, that I was debating on, giving away or getting rid of it, but it was on my bedside table, it wasn't in the stack, so I guess the next venture that I take to a little free library, I can do a little trade. So that'll be fun. But yeah, a little book haul. And I have been talking for a sufficient amount of time, I think. So that will conclude the 44th episode of the Running My Mouth podcast. I've been your host, Aaron. Thank you for allowing me to run my mouth. Follow me on Instagram, because if you're not following me on Instagram, you're only getting half the story. And as a reminder, you can see me and my writings in person at Couchfest Saturday, April 19th from 1 o'clock until sunset in the backyard. You can find me there. I will be there with reading materials and stickers that are on the way. However, they're coming via the postal service, and we have been having issues with our postal service recently, and I'm not gonna lie, I low-key don't know if they're gonna come on time, but I'm keeping a positive mindset. So, yeah, that'll be it. And now, it is time for me to drink the rest of this because I am not wasteful.